Hi everyone. Thank you so much once again for taking the time to watch this video. And we're starting off with a new series, which is going to be focusing more on fraud and just fraud prevention and fraud awareness. So as normal, I will be switching off my camera and then turning back to the class that I have prepared in terms of the slides so that we can start learning together. And of course, as normal, if you have any questions and you'd like to learn more, please follow us on our social media pages and definitely put on your notifications on YouTube so that you can be able to get all the notifications and be aware when we post new series and a new series or a new class for you to be able to learn. Okay, without wasting any more time, let us kick off. Alrighty, just waiting for my screen to load and we can then start off. Network is a bit slow. Okay, here we go. So like I said, we're going to be learning on fraud prevention, okay, so that we can just better prepare ourselves when it comes to all of these different types of scams. So let us first talk about what financial fraud is, okay? So basically, financial fraud is just people trying to scam you of your money and just find ways and scrupulous ways to be able to get some form of access to your finances. And so the definition here says financial fraud is a broad term that refers to any intentional act of deception involving financial transactions for the purpose of personal gain, right? It encompasses a wide range of illegal activities where an individual or entity knowingly deceives another to achieve financial advantage. Okay. So there are key elements, right, when it comes to financial fraud. Firstly, deception. Okay, so normally when fraudsters actually approach you and they try to actually scam you, there's always some form of lies, be it lies or omissions or manipulation of sort, just to mislead the victim. Okay, and then another way to be able to identify if it's fraud or not is that there's always some form of financial loss. So the victim, unfortunately, in this instance, will always be the one who suffers that financial loss. And then illegality, then that just means that with financial fraud, there's always an element of being illegal, right? It's not something that you can just do legitimately. There's always usage of illegitimate businesses because it is illegal and people would actually would be held liable in this form of the law and have criminal charges or civil penalties imposed on them if they are caught. Okay. So, the types of fraud that we want to talk about is, of course, investment fraud and then phishing scams. So, investment fraud, it's always offering fake investment opportunities or manipulating the market to benefit at the expense of investors, right? And this one is what we're going to be actually focusing a bit more on today. Okay. And then, of course, phishing scams. Phishing scams, guys, this is another form way of fraud where people are always sending you these deceptive emails or messages to trick individuals to provide sensitive information. One particular one that is currently quite topical here in South Africa is, for example, with SARS, because it's tax season. So sometimes people are now getting these emails from individuals who are claiming to be employees of SARS or representing SARS in some way and asking people to click on the links attached so that they can make payments or verify information. And SARS has also actually populated or sent out official communication to just make consumers aware that these fraudsters have now started a phishing scam that is targeting people that are using the e-filing system from SARS. Another one that is quite popular, for example, I use AfriHost, and what I've seen is that I've been getting a lot of phishing emails from people claiming to be from AfriHost, asking for me to confirm personal details and so forth. So AfriHost has also sent out communication to say that people should be aware of these scams and phishing emails that have been going around targeting their customer base, right? So it just requires you to be a bit more vigilant. Another one that I noted is tenders. Okay, so you'd get an email from whichever department this person is claiming to be from, and they're asking for all this personal information that you need to send them to bid for this tender. And normally when there are tender opportunities, you would not get an email from a employee from that particular department asking you, saying that this tender is urgent and so forth. So normally when there's a tender available, I mean, the department knows that people are going to bid, so they would never be rushing people to say this is urgent, please quickly respond and so forth. If you don't supply this, what I find quite interesting with these emails is where they would say that if you don't supply this type of service or this type of product, you can always outsource from the third party, and that's already a red flag. If I mean, with government, when they're looking for people to tender and offer services or products to the department, they always want to deal with the direct supplier. They would never write on their document to say that they are willing to accept your bid, even if you're going to get a third party to provide that particular service or that product. So that's another way, to try and just take note of the language that is used. It's not common and it does not make sense. Then I always say, just trust your gut, guys, and your instinct. When your instinct says something's wrong, chances are there is something wrong, right? So just to go back now, let's just focus on these different types of investment fraud schemes. So we're going to be looking at these five, which is firstly the Ponzi scheme, then the pyramid scheme, the advanced fee fraud, high yield investment programs, and affinity fraud. So the first one, of course, a Ponzi scheme. So basically, guys, a Ponzi scheme works in a sense that it requires, right? It requires investors to come in, okay, and from that investment, they would get paid from money that is paid by other investors. So this is basically like Nonjabulo borrowing money from John to pay Cindy. Basically, that's what they do. That's how the operating model works. So there's no legitimate business that is attached to this particular investment. So you can't really track and trace where this money or these tons of money is coming from. And so the red flags will always be, the promises of high returns with little or no risk. That's always red flag number one. And then, of course, difficulty receiving payouts or accessing information about the investment. So as I'm saying again, if it's too good, seems too good to be true, it normally is, guys. And we all know that with promises of high returns with little or no risk, that just does not make any financial sense. I mean, the Finance 101 teaches you high risk, high return. So how is it possible that you're going to be getting high returns but there's no risk element or little risk involved with this particular investment, right? And with these type of investments, it's always very difficult, for the individuals who have already invested to access their funds. So what they normally rely on with a Ponzi scheme is that they rely on the first or initial investors to spread the word. So if I've invested 10,000 Rand into this fund and I get a payout of 30,000 Rand in 3 weeks, right? And that makes no financial sense. So, of course, I've received this 30,000 Rand and it's now sitting in my account for me to use it. Of course, I'm going to be going around telling everybody, right? Because you're thinking to myself, oh my goodness, guys, this is such an amazing opportunity. And so, always the initial investors will always benefit because before this little bubble bursts or before they reach their target in terms of how much they want to reach with this fund, they would pay out all the investors and initial investors so that those initial investors can attract more investors by spreading the word of this amazing investment opportunity. And so more people come in and invest. And yes, they get paid out until they reach they target, right? Because when they have these kind of schemes, they always have a target in mind. They don't start the scheme without having a target to say, once we've made $1 billion, then we're going to just disappear. So if they reach their target, trust me, they're going to disappear. So people who get paid before these guys disappear, it's always unfortunately the individuals that have invested after the target has reached, after they've reached their target. And once they've reached their target, then of course they're going to disappear. And some of the things that people always need to take note of when it comes to these type of investment opportunities is that, receiving difficulty of receiving payouts or accessing information about the investment, right? So normally when these Ponzi schemes are started, you'd find that this little business is making millions of rands or dollars. However, they're operating at a rented space. Okay, they might find a nice fancy office park to rent out space, but it's nothing is concrete, right? Meaning that, I mean, literally, these individuals are working out of a space that you can see that they can pack up and go anytime. And sometimes they just merely have that office space just because they know people would want a reference point. But you won't find a billboard or anything that is a bit more that actually indicates that this business has been here for a long period of time and they're intending to stay there for a long period of time. So normally these Ponzi schemes last a short period of time. That's why these kind of businesses actually operate from rented space. There's nothing concrete that could tie them down for people to ensure and give people security that these businesses are here to stay. And of course, these businesses have no track record, right? Sometimes these businesses pop up overnight and you can't basically find any information relating to this particular business when you now do your investigations. All right. And then we're looking at the next investment fraud, which is a pyramid scheme. So with a pyramid scheme, right, think of it this way. It's a pyramid scheme and a Ponzi scheme. They both differ because with a Ponzi scheme, right, you are paid the money from the other investors and all the initial investors, right? However, with a pyramid scheme, how they've structured their business model is that they require you to go out and recruit new investors so that you can get a payout. Okay. So for you to get a payout, you would need to actually recruit more people so that you can get money paid into your account because of the number of people that you are recruiting. Okay. So that's normally how these pyramid schemes work. So there's different businesses that operate as a pyramid scheme where you're not selling any products or more emphasis is put on recruiting people versus selling a product or the service, right? And so those are some of the red flags. Of course, emphasis now on recruiting, okay, and then instead of selling or a product or a service. And then there's always these complex commission structures, okay, because basically you're going to get commission not necessarily because of the service or product you're selling, but you're going to get commission because of the number of people that you are recruiting. Isn't that strange? I mean, think of it this way. If you go to a car dealership, the individual that is working or the salesperson that's working at the car dealership would probably get commission for the number of sales in terms of the vehicles they sell. They won't get commission based on the number of walk-ins, right? Because they got so many people, they got 100 people walk into the car dealership, so therefore they're going to get commission on that. No, they would get commission based on the item they are selling, which is the vehicle in this instance, right? And then, of course, this pops up again, which is the lack of a legitimate business model, okay? Because this business is operating in a structure where it's asking people to recruit. So when you recruit more people to come and invest in this particular fund, you get more money paid into your account, okay? So you're basically a salesperson that is recruiting people, right? Instead of selling a product. And that's how they work. And that's how they entice more people to come and invest in the pyramid scheme. And just as similar to a Ponzi scheme, but the difference with a Ponzi scheme and another difference between the Ponzi scheme and a pyramid scheme is that with a pyramid scheme, they tend to actually be a bit last a bit longer because people don't tend to notice that this is a pyramid scheme, right? And so unlike a Ponzi scheme where they would possibly have a particular target that they want to reach, pyramid schemes end up actually operating within society without people actually recognizing that this is a Ponzi scheme. And people actually think it's a legitimate business model. And whereas it's not. So some pyramid schemes do actually come up overnight and then they last a bit of time unless they've got also have a target that they want to reach. And then they would, of course, just get out of Dodge once they've reached their target. So with the pyramid scheme, they tend to actually, because of the structure of the business model and having the individuals involved in the investment, portion side of things, but basically in terms of recruiting more people, not necessarily the understanding of where this money is invested and why are they gaining returns. People then, of course, unfortunately, don't tend to notice that this is a pyramid scheme, and they tend to last longer than Ponzi scheme. Okay. And then an advance fee fraud, right? Advance fee fraud. This is the type of fraud that you'd get, for example, an email, and you are told that you've won, right? You've won a lottery that you've never entered, and for you to be able to access these funds, you would have to pay some form of an upfront fee. Another example is they would let you, someone will contact you and say, hey, you've got a long lost relative that has left you an inheritance, and you would need to be able to pay some form of fee so that you can access these funds. So, of course, guys, red flags. The red flag here is that, I mean, there's always a payment that you would have to make in order for you to receive these funds. That's a red flag already, because firstly, you should always ask yourself, what did I do to be able to get this? Right? I mean, honestly, now this is just so unrealistic sometimes, because I mean, out of millions of people in this world, you were the one person that was selected to win this particular item, and you're winning a competition that you never entered. I mean, come on, guys, let's think about it. How are you winning a competition that you've never entered? How are you winning a lottery that you've never entered? Where's the lottery ticket? Because surely, if you've played the lottery and won, the first thing they're going to ask you is, where's the ticket? So how are you winning a lottery without you entering anything? Okay. So those are the kind of questions that you should ask and probe yourself before you fall trapped to these kind of scams, right? And let's try and make sure that we are not gullible, right? And just think about these kind of things logically, so that before you make any decision in terms of clicking or making a payment to anyone. And then pressure to act quickly to secure the deal. Of course, that's a number one. That's another one, right? Because all the time these deals and this opportunity is always time sensitive. I mean, you need to click now. You need to do it now, now, now. I mean, I remember a few weeks ago, I was just on my phone searching something on Safari. And so for some reason, I then was redirected to a page, right? I clicked something, I was searching something, and then I clicked something, and I was redirected to another page where this page was saying it's from Safari, right? Safari was awarding me for being such a loyal user and customer. And they were going to give me an iPhone 15 Pro because I'm such a loyal customer, right? And they had these balloons popping up with confetti, and it looked legitimate. And then on the bottom of the page, there was like a live feed of some sort from Instagram, where other people were like, "Oh, I want, I want, I want," so to try and make it as realistic as possible. And so then it said to me, I need to then just make this little payment, right? Of I think it was like a small amount of money at that point in time. If I'm not mistaken, it was like what, $15, right? Which translates to about like maybe about just over 200 Rand in South African rands. So at that point in time, you'd think to yourself, I mean, guys, why would I not want to pay a fee of like $200, 200 Rands just to get myself an iPhone 15 Pro? I mean, looking at the value of what an iPhone 15 Pro is. So then I asked myself, but why would this kind of competition not be trending on social media if it were legitimate? Do you not think Apple themselves, and in our instance in South Africa, the iStore would be the one to be advertising to tell their customers that, guys, iPhone users, Apple users, just be aware there's this competition. If you're a lucky recipient, you can come collect your phone here. In terms of just, I mean, how can this amazing thing happen to you and you're the only one experiencing it? No one else knows about it. So that's all the kind of red flags I'm talking about. And of course, there was pressure to say that click now, and there was a little countdown clock, and that was just counting down to say there's 15 minutes left to this deal. And I'm thinking, why, if I've won something, why am I being put under pressure to make sure that I conclude this transaction now? Secondly, if I've won something, why do I need to pay in order to be able to get or receive this award or this the winnings that I have? So those are the kind of questions you need to ask yourself. Probe and question, because those are the things that are going to make you realize that, hey, someone is trying to take me for a ride, and you protect yourself. Okay. And so the other one that we're going to be looking at is the high yield investment programs. So these ones are normally internet based, right? You normally get a little message on Facebook, Instagram. That's where I've seen these type of scams where they'll pop up, and it's a business, right? And when you try and track and trace that business, there's no legitimacy to this business, right? Secondly, it's either they're unregistered or unregulated investment platforms. Hey, because I mean, with cryptocurrency, guys, there's so many of these scams going around because now the regulation for cryptocurrency is so limited. So people are taking advantage of that loophole currently, and that is why they're scamming a lot of people when it comes to these high yield investment programs. And so I will say this again, guys: if it seems too good to be true, it probably is, right? Secondly, think of it this way: if you can't understand what is going on in this investment fund, why would you think it's a wise thing for you to invest in? Why don't you go to a financial institution, whichever is closest to you, speak to a financial advisor? At least you know there's a person who's working at this institution, it's a reputable institution, and you have some form of recourse if anything goes wrong. Now you will see this business on Facebook or on Instagram, and you want to invest your hard-earned cash into this business, and yet you has no traceability. How are you sitting in South Africa and wanting to invest in a business that you've not heard of, and you only heard of it on Instagram or on Facebook, and it's based anywhere out of this country, right? How are you going to be able to, fight your case if someone is now taking you for a ride and they defraud you of your hard-earned cash, right? Those are all the kind of things you need to think about. And unfortunately, they don't actually go through that thought process, and that's why they fall trapped to these kind of scams, right? And then another thing that I want people to be aware of course, is that sometimes people think that, oh, if it's an illegitimate business, it's going to be easy for you to see. No, it's not. These fraudsters are smart, guys, because they want to make sure that they're catching you and they are trapping you, right? So they're going to make this look as realistic as possible. So if you're thinking that you're going to go to a website and you're like, this website looks dodgy, no, it's going to look like a legitimate business with a legitimate website and so forth. When you Google the person who claims to be giving you money, you're definitely going to find them on Google. You'll find an Instagram account. Normally, those are the things you do, right? Because you think to yourself, okay, maybe let me do a bit of research and see. But at the back of your mind, there's that little instinct that's saying, oh, this is too good to be true. This is too good to be true. But unfortunately, then people say, no, but I've checked and I've done my checks and balances. This makes sense. So I'm definitely going for it. I just want to, wake up the next day and be a millionaire or a billionaire. And people just have no thought process to this. And I say it to people a lot: the same way you wake up in the morning to go to your job, right? It's the same thing with fraudsters. They also wake up in the morning and think of ways how they're going to defraud you because that's their job. So why would you think they are just going to be doing a shoddy sure there will be some shoddy workmanship, or they're not going to do a good job when it comes to trying to defraud you? Of course, they're going to put their best foot forward, the same way you put your best foot forward when it comes to your job. So they know that they need the money that you make and your hard-earned cash so that they can maintain their lavish lifestyles. So of course, they're going to put their best efforts to try and defraud you. So don't ever think that, just by looking at an email, you're going to be able to detect that it's fraudulent. No, you just need to do your due diligence. So, like I mentioned around the phishing scams, always, either verify with the service provider that someone is claiming to be, so that you can just make sure that you double and triple check, right? Just to send an email and say, hi, I just want to verify if this email is correct. Don't email the same email on the email now. Come on. I know that sounded a bit like a riddle, but just go online and Google that particular organization and find the contact details online and call them if you have to, just to make sure that you are covering all your bases and protecting yourself so you do not fall victim to these scams. And then the last one, right? So the last one is the affinity fraud scam. So this one is a bit sad and interesting at the same time, guys, because on this instance, fraudsters actually take advantage of your good nature. So they are banking on your trust in this kind of fraud scam, because this kind of scam, they're always looking to find a way they can manipulate the trust that you possibly have. So it's always going to be, for example, targeting social clubs, religious groups, ethnic groups, and some form of community-based group, because that's the best way they can be able to actually fool these individuals, because there's an element of trust in it, right? And so the red flags when it comes to this kind of scheme: investment opportunities are always promoted through a community leader or the influencer. And of course, like I'm saying, if you know this particular influencer and you follow them, and so they are the ones that are saying, hey guys, you need to do this. There's definitely, this is not fraud, this is not a scam. You're definitely going to get your money back. Guys, this is an amazing investment. And you trust that particular influencer or individual, then chances are you're going to invest, right? Because they're banking on the trust that you have on that particular individual. Another one is always pressure, right? Pressure, 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 because they want you to just not think and just literally act. So when you think, then your senses are going to kick in, and common sense is also going to kick in. So that's why they're always trying to make sure that you make this decision as quickly as possible before reality and your common senses come up and be like, whoa, wait, what's going on? This makes no sense. So pressure to invest quickly is always going to be there, and they're always going to play on the element of trust, because that individual be like, no guys, you trust me, I mean, I'm part of you, so why would I fool you guys? I mean, I invested and I got my money back, I'm still here, this isn't this and this. That's what they do, right? And then, of course, lack of independent verification, like any other of these scams, trying to verify this information and trying to access, anything regarding this particular scam. It's not easy to be able to find information, because they rely more on your trust. And of course, they bank on the trust, and that's how they get people to invest, because people then feel that I trust this person and they would not take me for a ride, or fool me or take my money. I trust this person, therefore I will invest in this opportunity. And unfortunately, that is how people tend to fall trap to these affinity schemes. So what I then thought of doing is that, just for us to go through some of these examples, right, of these type of scams. And I got some of the examples on Google. You can definitely Google them on your side also, just to learn more about them. Also, just reading up on the consequences, right, of these scams. So a Ponzi scheme, right? The Ponzi scheme, we look at Bernie Madoff. So he was the one person, who was able to actually defraud thousands of people in the States out of billions of dollars, right, because of his Ponzi scheme. And unfortunately, guys, what people tend to not understand when it comes to fraud, it's not an easy case to prove. And so, unfortunately, victims then tend to sometimes not get any return from that particular scam, or once they are defrauded, right? So that is why you really need to be vigilant, because once these scammers have your money, there's nothing you can do sometimes in terms of trying to track and trace who that particular individual is, and trying to get some form of legal recourse or get your money back. Okay, so just keep an eye out and just be vigilant. So another example here is, of course, the pyramid scheme. I love this example where they say the airplane game. So basically, if we look at an airplane, there's air hostesses, and there's a pilot, and then there's passengers. So ideally, what they're saying here is that a pyramid scheme just works as, if you join as a passenger, you're trying to work towards becoming an air hostess, and then from an air hostess you'd want to become initially the pilot. And the more the higher up you go, the more money you make. And that's basically how a pyramid scheme actually works, right? So once you become the pilot, then you're able to actually get more money, because you have all this money you are earning from the passengers and all the air hostess that have. So normally with these pyramid schemes, they're always tiered. So in order to attract more people, they'll have low level level individuals, and then middle, and then top management would always be getting the most benefits, right? And the higher you go, the more money you make, because the more people come in and invest, and the more people you recruit, the more money then you generate. Okay. And then with the advanced free fraud, the Nigerian prince scam, right? Then, of course, I mean, how many of you have not gotten an email saying that there's this notorious prince somewhere that is excuse me, who now just saw your Instagram pictures, and they just fallen in love with you, and they want to, spend the rest of their life with you, and they want to spend their fortunes with you. So another example that was quite popular with this Nigerian prince scam is the Netflix series Tinder Swindler, right? So because Simon basically did more or less the same thing, he was going around scamming these women with an opportunity, saying that, show them this glamorous life. And then by showing them a glamorous life, he's portraying that glamorous life on his side. Someone else was actually financing that glamorous life, right? And then got women to then pay money into his accounts and so forth, because they thought they were investing in him and the future that they had together. But basically, it was more of a complex advance fee fraud that he was actually playing on these women. And of course, with the Nigerian prince scam, like I mentioned, you'd be getting an email for an inheritance or some long lost person that now wants to give you a sum of money out of nowhere, and you'd have to actually make some form of payment so that the funds can be released, right? And ideally, that's what they always target people using that kind of language on that communication, and unfortunately, people fall trapped to it. And then with the high yield investment, right, the BitConnect, right? So you can actually Google this company. It's quite interesting, right? So this cryptocurrency based investment platform, promised users, high returns up to 40%. So guys, up to 40% return on a monthly basis. That makes no financial sense, right? Let's all stop working and definitely invest in this, because I mean, how is that even possible? Where are they actually getting these returns? How are they getting and making this amount of money? So look at it this way. I mean, if you invest 10,000 Rand into this fund, every month you'd be getting 4,000, about up to 4,000 Rand a month. So like, that is just crazy and ridiculous. But unfortunately, people were falling trapped to this and invested in this particular investment fund and lost their finances. And then the last one, of course, the affinity fraud example, Greater Ministries International. Like the others, you can actually Google this example. And like I said, with affinity fraud, it's always some form of affiliation and some form of association that they prey on. So no, interesting pun. Prey as in PREEY, not PRAY. So they prey on their victims because they actually targeting these individuals because it's a Greater Ministries International. So they're also a religious group. So people that they were targeting were, of course, other religious groups in terms of Christian communities. So as a result, they got all of these different people in different churches to invest in this fund. And they were busy telling them that this fund is backed up by gold and silver trading. And that's why they were able to actually get these high returns. And of course, it's a classic example of affinity fraud, because this particular organization was targeting, churches ideally because it portrayed itself as another religious group. So it's coming to these churches with some form of commonality and saying, hey, we also are Christians and followers of Christ. This is an amazing opportunity for you to grow your church and be able to get more funds for your church and so forth. And so that is basically what they use to try and actually defraud people out of the millions of dollars that they had. Okay, so of course, if you have any questions, comments that you'd want to make, definitely follow us on our socials. You can also just contact us directly. And please keep your notifications on so that you can be able to get a notification once these videos are up and uploaded on our YouTube, Facebook, and other platforms that we use, so that you can just learn more about your money. So just as a last note, guys, like I said, if it sounds too good to be true. It normally is. Trust your gut, trust your instinct, and just try and not fall trap to these scams. Thanks for tuning in and have an awesome one.